I'm Ali Zendrian, founder of AtoZ Communications, and this is the Brand Stories podcast. We discuss everything related to marketing, branding, and public relations during this podcast. This week, we have Joe Kozeniewski from Powerlytics. He's in the demand gen category of marketing, which he will dive into and explain for us, and talk about the importance of understanding where your clients are coming from exactly. I'm very fortunate to have Joe Kozeniewski. Did I say that right?
Is that it? Yeah.
Yes. I'm not going to lie. I always kind of fear your name, which is the dumbest thing because I'm mostly Polish, but yeah, I'm so glad that I nailed that one. Yay.
Not a problem. Yeah. And Joe Koz is perfectly fine. I feel like my name's been shortened all my life, so never a problem.
Oh. But anyway, we are lucky to have you because you're a marketing dynamo. We both met when you were clients and you've done fabulous things since then. So very interested in your perspective in the industry and how everything's doing.
Yeah, well, thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. I know we've kind of done some projects together and worked together a little bit, and been around the industry as have you. So I feel like we both kind of have a good perspective and outlook, and get things done.
You got to get it done. If you got to hustle.
Yep.
Yeah. So first question is what your favorite brand is and why.
Okay, so I've thought hard about this question, and at different points in time, probably would have had different answers. And I'll go with what might be a cliche, and I'll say Apple. More for more reasons than kind of their visual and style and things like that. I think that's wonderful. And I don't know if it was kind of an output of that era or kind of ushered in that era of just like the clean fonts, the white space, the backgrounds, things like that, the silhouettes. You remember the guy dancing and you just recognize it right away. And a combination of the big name kind of music and players and things like that they get in. There's no generic stock music in an Apple commercial. And more than that, what I was thinking was, I remember being a kid and my family was one of those Macintosh families. And back then, these were great computers, but it was like for gamers and nerds, and everyone else had a gateway computer at home. And we had a Macintosh for some reason, and it was unheard of. And then around maybe when I was in college, maybe a little after, they started coming out with, I think it was the big neon colored Mac. Yeah, that was the relaunch. And I think not too long after that came out with the iPod and the iPhone and everything. And so I'm just fascinated with the way that they took what was maybe kind of a stale, outdated, or not very known company and brand. And remember, it was always kind of that rainbow apple, and just really reconfigured it and really somehow made it ubiquitous. It's almost like Apple or iPod has become like that Kleenex, the word that the brand name that became a generic now. And so I love the way they turned that around, and how Apple has really taken over the market share. I think so much of that is due to their branding and imagery, and that perception. It just really fascinates me how that all went down.
Absolutely. And actually, so that took me back. I forgot that in my family, similarly, our first computer was a Mac. That brought me back to sitting down and doing Oregon Trail because that's how old we are.
Oregon Trail and Mac Paint and all that. And then my biggest problem was I can remember working on projects at home on the Mac, and at school we had the PC and nothing would convert. So I always had a good excuse to say, well, my project's late because I couldn't, convert it to a PC. I'll print it out tomorrow.
Oh, that was, what? If for nothing else, that was very smart on your part to use that.
Right.
Totally. I would milk that too. But anyways, if you don't mind taking us back even to how you got started in the industry and how your career's been since then.
Yeah, sure. So been around a little bit, and kind of had been in finance, more healthcare finance, for a couple of years, and made this transition over to financial services, working directly with advisors, broker dealers, things like that, always on a marketing and strategy side, a lot of digital, a lot of campaign, demand gen. I like to say that I'm more demand gen than marketing focused. And I think we'll probably in the conversation get into that a little bit difference, but have been in financial services working directly with advisors, software, SaaS, startup scene for years now. Been some larger firms, some more established, been some smaller, kind of just starting out. Like I said, right now, Powerlytics, we're small but mighty, very established, been around, I'd say maybe about 10 years or so, and really big in the bank and credit union space for consumer and business data for use for loan decisioning and credit ratings and things like that. Recently launched our new product called True Wealth, and that is pitched primarily to financial advisors, also applicable for credit unions and banks, but really going after that financial advisor, broker dealer, RIA market, your same audience, because we have this data out there directly underpinned by the IRS and all these other algorithms and sources and things that advisors can get truly accurate, up-to-date current marketing data for consumers. You can find income verification, contact information, all kinds of investable assets, things like that. And it really speaks to what you love doing, what I love doing, and that is helping advisors, helping financial services just grow, reach your audience, to spread your message, and then build that business. Like I said, coming from a demand gen mindset, it's sort of half marketing, half sales. You want every dollar spent to be $2 earned. It's not putting up billboards and hoping what's happening. It's really looking for results. And I think that by using this type of data, advisors and other users can just really measure that. It's easy to just kind of see the progression and the success rate from using that. So really, really excited for that particular product. Yeah, great company, great industry. Been very fortunate to work with a lot of very, very sharp people. Really happy that way.
And we're very fortunate to have you.
No.
So we have that in common. I also was in the healthcare field before I got back into financial services. And it's interesting. In some ways, you would think that those things have nothing to do with each other. One's got HIPAA forms and one's got completely different kinds of regulations. But on the other hand, they're both highly regulated industries. If you can speak that language, that it translates across many different industries. So congratulations to you that you've made that work throughout your career as well.
Thank you. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's funny going from healthcare and you get these regulations and disclaimers and things just drilled into your head. And like you said, HIPAA, and I was, kind of coming up through post launch of HIPAA, but through the implementation of like the electronic health records and all that and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming into financial services during DOL and fiduciary and all that. Really, really interesting. Probably one of my favorite stories was going from the broker dealer side to more of the SaaS tech side. And the first time I created a campaign, I said, okay, now who approves this or what makes it legal? It's a little freer now. We're a private company now, so it's been fascinating. But you still hold on to those things. Don't ever say I guarantee. You don't ever show a picture of cash. That you just never want to do all that. To stay compliant, stay on the good side of everybody.
Absolutely. But getting back to the new Powerlytics tool, so what's sort of the best application for that? Because I could see, do you use it for seminars? Because then obviously the people in the room are most qualified to want to use your services. You don't have to pre-qualify them after the fact. Do you use it for email marketing campaigns? Do you use it for everything, basically? How would you best utilize it?
Absolutely, yeah. You can use it for everything. I think it gets into very probably what speaks to you and me as well. Very segmented, very data driven. Just a depth of information. Covers 100% of consumers across the United States. I don't want to say it's not self-reported because obviously the IRS and taxes and things are self-reported. But if you ever log into your bank website or your credit card and it'll say, "Can you update your income? You haven't done this for a while. You haven't done that," and that's all self-reported. And how I don't do that. Do you do that? So this is all coming directly from the IRS, from other technical sources that it's all true and accurate. An advisor could go in and say, "Give me X number of contacts that have this much income or this much investable assets," or this a big one that we've been seeing is people using it for charitable giving. They're reaching out kind of like a niche. Who is giving how much to charities, and how can I incorporate that into my marketing and my sales? So basically, an advisor or a team would access our system, put in parameters as broad or as specific as they want to, and then download the contact information for those consumers, and then use that however they wish. And that's where I think someone like you or your agency would really come in useful. It's they can set up email campaigns, they can pick up the phone and call, they can connect on LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. I just had someone say, "I'm going to be doing mailers. Do you think that's useful?" I said, "Oh, for your demographic, maybe it is. It could be could be older consumers or ultra high net worth or whatever you want it to be." And use that to just discover contact information, discover consumers you maybe didn't know were out there. And I think that's so much of marketing, right? Define your audience, know who you're trying to pitch to, but then how do you get to them? And so this is that missing step there. You may or may not have the marketing knowledge or sales knowledge. You may or may not have the demographic knowledge. But if you can find that, you or someone can do anything you want with it. You can use it indefinitely to really reach who you need to reach.
Yeah, very true. So you mentioned mail. On the one hand, it seems like some people are saying mail is dead, which if you look at my stack of mail that I haven't gone through yet, it is arguably true. Although when I do see something bright and shiny, I go look at it. But on the other hand, it might be exactly that. It's the bright and shiny thing. So do you feel like mail is dead, or what other avenues for demand gen do you feel like are in vogue or coming up?
Yeah, it's funny. At a lot of these firms, I like to say that what I'm doing is technically B2B because I'm working with advisors in their own firms, but it's really B2C. And I kind of treat that as these advisors are consumers of their own. But then there's that extra layer of they have their own consumers. So it's sort of like a double. I have to think, well, what might make sense to me might make less sense to the advisor, may make even less sense to their consumer. I think mail's a great example of, I don't know that for my demographic necessarily, I would be swayed by a postcard or a mailer from an advisor. I could be, but I'm thinking maybe someone a little more on the older end. I had an advisor say they searched for by age and by income and things like that, and they said these are people that are probably looking to retire within X number of years. Let me reach out to them and say, hey, I'm the retirement specialist. Here's what I do. Here's why you need to start doing it now if you're not already, type of thing. So I could see that. I don't think mail or any type of marketing would be dead or less useful. I think it all depends on who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to accomplish. If you are mailing a piece of paper and say, it all depends. Do you want them to pick up the phone and call you? Do you want them to go to your website? As long as you're clear on that, I think nothing hurts. I think any type of marketing can be useful to the right person.
It was a very financial services answer. It all depends.
Right?
But I
You
mean,
never know who's out there.
Language ingrained in our heads, so I totally get it. Well, with the industry where we should be with demand gen, is the industry using all the effective tools that they ought to be? Are there more opportunities out there that we're just not leveraging?
I'd say there's so much out there that, and it's updating every day. Having been for a while in the tech and the financial, the fintech SaaS space, just the innovations and the things that come along and the amount of useful data and information that's out there, I think is so important to use. And I understand, advisors are not necessarily marketing people. This is stuff that you and I do all day, every day. We understand this, it's ingrained in us, but I understand that's not the typical experience. And I wouldn't expect, if I use financial advisors, if my financial advisor was busier running email campaigns, I wouldn't prefer that. That this is why they kind of need to learn. So I think that right now, as you probably see, the biggest source of new business is referrals, and I think. While I think that's great and you can't get more genuine than a referral, I always think of things like Yelp, or when people leave reviews, you only ever see the 5-star or the 1-star. You only see people who are really, really happy or really, really unhappy. And so I think you're missing a big chunk of that. If you have 5% of your clients that are going to be actively referring people to you, or, even going to that effort, that's great. But what about those other 95% of that marketplace out there? And so I think that is a missing piece that advisors and other financial people can really use data like we're talking about, and just have some kind of small scale marketing or advertising effort. Doesn't need to be millions of dollars, doesn't need to be hours a day. It's something where you start small. You can start posting on social media, or like you said, sending out a mailer, quarterly mailer. I know a lot of advisors who use agencies like your own and do PR and marketing things, and send out just a newsletter or have a monthly email type of thing. Making that little effort is a lot easier when you have good, accurate data that you can use, you can access that data, and it's going to be right. It's going to be accurate. You're going to be spending the money and getting that ROI because it's all useful data that you can then market to, and then increase your.
Yeah, actually, you were totally speaking my language. The latest Nitrogen report showed that as far as referrals are concerned, that content marketing overtook that as the top source, and the guess is basically that that's going to be the case from here on out. Would you feel the same way, and what's your thinking behind that?
I would, and I love that 10, 15 years later, we're still talking about content marketing, and it's finally coming to the fore. I've always been an advocate of it, and you want to read interesting things and learn from people, and you want to see proven value, not necessarily be bombarded with Google ads or click here, click here, click here. You want some meat behind it. You want that. So I love that content marketing is now ubiquitous, whereas 10 years ago, that wasn't necessarily that way. I'd agree. I think that even with referrals and things like that, if you were to call me and say, hey, I want you to use this professional, the first thing I would do would Google them, look at their website, see what's out there. Maybe they had published an article or appeared on a webinar or a podcast like yours. So I think even with referrals and things, it's that content that's there. It's what are they bringing to the table and what is useful. I used to, during some of my marketing contract worker days, have that saying that you need to kind of rise above the fluff. You know what I mean? There's so much out there, and it needs to be meaningful. I'll give you a great example. One of my pet peeves, and it happens all the time, I'll get an email that'll say, hey, great to meet you at this last conference we went to, or thanks for attending my webinar. And I'll say, I didn't. I signed up for it. I wasn't there. I know you just put me into a list, da da da. And it's no big deal, but it's also, I think, man, that just doesn't speak to me. It's just such a turnoff. If they had said, hey, didn't get to meet you at the conference, or did get to meet you or whatever, but we were talking about X, Y, and Z. Here's a cool white paper that I found that gives you some background on this topic. Or, hey, I just read an article on Bloomberg. It's talking about this exact thing. Let's take a look at it type of thing. So I think it's really it's that extra touch that content marketing kind of provides. And once you have the content, think how many white papers you've written, and you can pitch them every a million different ways. You put them on downloads for ads. You can email them out directly. You can print them out, take them to a conference like that. I think that content, you're right, like the content and the branding and things like that is definitely 1,000% what's needed, and definitely what's going on and going to keep happening.
Thank you. So another thing that struck me recently, speaking about data, is from AcquireUp's latest survey. It was showing, and I forget the exact percentage, but I want to say it's about 15% of advisors don't know where their ROI from marketing is coming from. Which, I mean, on the one hand, totally sounds believable, and I get that, but I could imagine you in particular would be able to explain why that's very not helpful.
It's not helpful, and I would say not even advisors. I mean, think most people I know, many companies I know will say, "Well, we got this business. Well, where did that business come from? I don't know." Which is it blows my mind, but that's sort of the mindset I think, and that's sort of that difference I think between the marketing and the demand gen and the trackability. I think people get overwhelmed a lot of times when you say, "Well, start marketing." Okay, what does that mean? Or do this or do that or check your ROI or where did that come from? And I think if you start small, it's fairly easy to think that. I'll have a list of people that we met at a conference and we processing them and marketing with them, and our salespeople are talking and things. And then when that books, I can go back and say, okay, I know that person. We first met them at E3 or at whatever at Future Proof, and that's where that business came from. Okay, that means that I spent X thousand to go to Future Proof, got this much business from it. It's never as clean as that. It's never a straight line, obviously. But I think once you start seeing patterns like that, or even if it's simpler than that, turning to a client in that conversion is a great stat to track. But I think you can start even smaller. Something like, okay, I sent this email, my open rate was whatever. And is that a good rate or not? Did 10% of my people open that? Did 50%? And then you start getting a little bit more complex. Okay, well, that many people opened it. How many people actually clicked the link to sign up for my business or to contact me? And so I think little stats like that you can kind of see, and you and I will get all this. Does the subject line make sense? And does the time of day? And that's all for a smaller scale marketing campaign. Like, forget all that. You just want to get something out there, get some content out there, reach your people, and then examine that. And the great thing about marketing is it's so easy to change. If it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, change it up. You look at that email and say, my open rate was kind of bad. Let's take a look at why. Okay, maybe my subject was kind of bland. Hey, want to work with an advisor? Question mark. Okay, maybe try something a little flashier. Was it too flashy? Was there emojis? Things like that. I feel like our generation and younger is so well versed in social media that I love when people really get into it. What time of day should I post, on LinkedIn, or what should I send a Facebook message this time or that day? And I think it's all kind of innate at this point in us. Sunday morning, Friday afternoon is probably not going to be great. Tuesday at 10 will probably be better than Wednesday at midnight, that type of thing. So I feel like if you kind of apply that to your general marketing as well, it's really, really useful. Think, when would you respond to a message, or when are you more likely to open an email? One of the things I love about working so closely with advisors is that they're very regular people. These are not ivory tower. These are people that they're family people like you and I. They're our friends and neighbors. And so I think a lot of your own experience can really influence what you're doing. As long as it makes sense to you, it's probably going to make sense to your audience.
You're right. Based on what you were saying, for advisors who might be saying, well, what is it that I even need to be doing to be able to understand where the ROI is coming from? So from what I heard from what you said, I would think a good CRM that's well populated and constantly updated, and maybe an email marketing system. But what do you think?
I think so. Complexity and cost obviously can be a concern to anyone. I think that there are so many free or low or easily accessible tools out there. I have advisors all the time. They say, I'm going to do something in MailChimp. Okay. Able to track, you're able to see the stats, you can see the opens and things like that. It may sound simple, but one of the simplest things I found is that I will look at all of our email sends and say, okay, here's the people who opened more than one email. Here's the people who have opened 2 emails in the past month. And I'll communicate with the sales team and I'll say, this person, they did what we wanted them to do, or maybe they clicked on something where we wanted them to do. They're kind of warming up. Now use your judgment. Is it appropriate? Does that mean pick up the phone and give them a call? Does that mean pick up the pace a little bit? You and I could get very complex and say, oh, they're going to get an email this day, and when they open it, it's going to go here and all that. And there's no need to do any of that. Just kind of use your head, use your knowledge and your experience, and say, okay, this person's been following me a little bit, or this person's been liking a lot of my LinkedIn posts. What does that mean? That means I'm coming top of mind. That means my message is resonating. How can I then turn that into a new customer.
Yeah. Before we got on the podcast, you said something that really struck me: the people who don't engage with you or who don't open the emails and whatnot, and how you feel about those. Because I think some people say, like, look, those are the lost, and I can only keep on top of so many things. How do you see that group of people?
On one hand, my sales part of my brain always lives by this kind of slogan. They say, if they say no, you say next. I love that kind of move on. There's plenty of fish in the sea. That's when you have like that no, you know what I mean, or not now or whatever. The definitive. When you have people who are just kind of dangling there, and I think it's true of all marketing and demand gen. The small and consistent X and hardcore anytime. Just kind of keeping front of mind. It doesn't mean an email a week. It doesn't mean a phone call a day. It doesn't mean you have to post on social media 4 times a day, anything like that. Anything is better than nothing. That consistency is how you start becoming front of mind. I was telling you earlier, we just started a new campaign for our True Wealth product, the data service for advisors and things. And I had been working with a new group that I think maybe was not quite aware of who we were and what we were doing yet, or hadn't really been involved with us before. And first go round, okay, results weren't really there. Second go round, went up a little bit. Third go around, people started doing, transitioning and doing what we were hoping for. So again, I think just that consistent. If it's sending out a newsletter, I mean, and for some of these BDs and wirehouses, I'm sure they have marketing teams. I've been on these teams. I mean, they have the materials. I've created these materials that send a monthly email. The other thing I love doing is at a certain point, kind of letting that sit a little bit. You don't need to bombard people. And then one of the things I love working with our sales team on is saying, here's that low hanging fruit. Here's people who maybe didn't engage. I'd say you start with the no's, the closed lost, and kind of look at the reason. And maybe the reason was, well, not right now, or I need to wait for next year's budget, or cost is an issue. You need to kind of market to them. But then those people who haven't engaged yet, hey, kind of start over again. It's been 6 months. Start over with some introductory messaging, or invite them to your next webinar or dinner seminar, or add them to your mailing list type of thing. I think you can always kind of go back. I'll use the term lead capture, and I think that's a term that you and I would know, and I wouldn't expect advisor necessarily to know that, meaning that every time you're asked, as a person, every time you're asked to fill out a form, like, do you want to download our white paper? Give us your name and email address. That's the gold right there. And that's what we do. And that's the key of the demand gen. So getting the names in the door, capturing those leads is usually a challenge and costs money and effort and things like that. Once you have that contact information, it's up to you with what to do with it. And so that's what excites me the most about this True Wealth is it's the lead information without any of the work. It's all there. It's all there for the picking. It's yours to do with what you want to. But like you were saying, the names or the people who haven't done anything with you ever, if at all, I think it's fine to kind of restart them again. And maybe that means, okay, you use that to refine your messaging a little bit. Maybe you came out of the gate too strong or too high level or whatever it may be. And once you have those names, once you kind of have that captive audience, they're yours to use. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So this might be a stupid question, but do you feel like the True Wealth tool, is that essentially going to put you out of business whatever number of years from now?
Not a stupid question, and everyone's saying, "Oh, AI is going to take over, and I'm not going to have a job anymore because AI can do all this and everything." No, I think because there's so much data out there, and you can have books and books and books, or files and files and files, but really, it's what you do with it that matters. And that's where like someone like you comes in, what to do with these contact information. You know what kind of messaging is going to work. You know what this advisor has a different value prop than that advisor, works with different clientele and things. So I don't think it'll ever replace what we do or the marketing efforts. I think any innovations, any information like this is only accentuating or enhancing what can be done and what's already out there. The more accurate your data, the better returns you're going to have, the easier time you're going to have, and the more you're going to be able to use it. So I say use it. It's AI and ChatGPT. And everyone kept saying, well, no true writer, no true marketer, wherever you use ChatGPT, it's going to throw it out of business. I said, it's kind of like Google. It's if you know how to use, it's not going to solve everything. I wouldn't want my plane being run by ChatGPT, but if there's someone who's using that as a tool and knows how to use it, it's definitely invaluable. Same as this True Wealth. The data's there, but now it's kind of using that human element of the advisor or an agency like you or myself that would say what to do with that and how to make that information useful. So it's kind of, where do you find the information? How valuable is it? And what do you do with it?
Yeah, love that. So this has all been great. Is there anything else that you feel like I missed, or any other points you want to give to everybody?
No, I love this kind of conversation. I'd say that if there's ever anything, in the industry, reach out to me, reach out to Allie. I connect with us on LinkedIn. And if it's something that we can help you with, I'm sure we know somebody who can. But I'd say I love nothing more than marketing and sales and that revenue generation and, just helping businesses grow and succeed. Set a couple small goals, take a little bit of time, be consistent, and see what happens. You've got nowhere to go but up. There's the data out there. There's the experts like you and me out expert. There's the professionals like you and me out there, to help
We're
you
the
along the way.
experts.
We are, yes, I guess so, right? And it's your podcast. You're the pro. But I'd say start small. Don't be overwhelmed. Give it a try, and when you need help, ask for it. It's all there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite. It's been a wonderful time.
Anytime.